トビデオ
So, you know what time it is. That time of the year where I pull out an anime from the illustrious and always welcome Slayers franchise and make a video about it. Well, I'm not gonna do that this year. Well, sort of. I've been at this gig for exactly 7 years, and quite frankly, I am running a little low on Slayers material to cover. After covering the 3 TV seasons and all 4 movies, all I have left right now are a handful of OVAs and short films, plus the Evolution series. It's not the end of the Slayers franchise, but you can see it from here. Knowing that I'm nearing my limit, I am foregoing the annual Slayers fair this year in the interest of staggering this bit out for a little longer. But that doesn't mean we're going to be completely done with the Kanzaka-verse. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I must emphasize that Hajime Kanzaka was an incredibly popular figure in the 90s. His work with Slayers is credited for making the light novel industry the powerhouse it is today, allowing it to publish trashy web novels left and right. But Kanzaka did not just write the Slayer series. He had other works in his arsenal raring to go. And right after Slayers Try wrapped up and the whole Slayers craze was beginning to die down, it was decided that another one of Kanzaka's novel series would be receiving the same treatment that Slayers did. The difference here being that while Slayers took place in your typical Dungeons & Dragons fantasy world, this anime would instead be taking place in a whole nother universe. A galaxy far, far away, as it were. It is the far out future. Humanity has escaped the clutches of Earth and are now a spacefaring, multiplanetary, intergalactic civilization. But such a futurist society has now led to new dangers humanity must face, like space pirates, assassins, and organized crime spread across the galaxy. Space cops aren't enough to handle these new dangers. In this world, if you've got a big enough problem, you hire a trouble contractor. Trouble contractors, or troubleshooters as they are sometimes called, are mercenaries whose job is to solve problems no matter how big or small. Whether it's helping escort precious cargo across a route known for space pirate attacks, or quashing a dark energy smuggling ring, trouble contractors will carry out any difficult assignment to the end, as long as it shows a profit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now if you could kindly give us a payment for our services.
Certainly, just send us a receipt.
This is the occupation of our heroes, Kane Blue River and Canal Volfield. Kane is a hard-bitten daredevil who became a contractor to feed his taste for adventure. An optimist and a free spirit, he's willing to take any job and always believes that he can overcome anything the world throws at him, even when it does cut into some of his vacation time.
Activate Psycho Energy!
Here's what I can do with my guts!
Canal, by contrast, is far more practically minded. While initially coming off as a giggly teenage girl at first glance, she's more the brains of the operation. She's very analytical, and her plans are usually the reason why Kane doesn't charge into a situation guns blazing. Canal is also more of a realist than Kane, preferring to take the jobs that can net them the most profit over more fun or easy jobs. After all, she needs that money so she can spend it all on her favorite thing in the world, weapons.
I'm glad I stayed here because we've gotten lots of presents. And you know, presents are my most favoriteest thing ever!
This is because Canal is not a human being, but actually the holographic avatar for the computer system of Kane's starship, Swordbreaker. An inheritance present from Kane's late grandmother, Swordbreaker is what is known in this universe as a lost ship, a unique one-of-a-kind spacecraft that appears to have no human origin and possesses an arsenal of weaponry that can only be described as supernatural in nature. Rounding out the trio of heroes is Millie Nocturne, a happy-go-lucky egomaniac. Millie is a girl who wishes to be the best in the universe, which means getting any job she can get her hands on and getting good at it, whether it be sharpshooter, detective, or beauty pageant queen. After getting unwillingly roped into one of Kane and Canal's jobs, she forcibly joins the two troubleshooters whether they like it or not, acting as both their assistant and resident chef. That is, when she's not being a loudmouth nuisance.
It's a deal! We're going to have the best partnership in the whole universe. Won't we? Why can't you stop making messes in the ship?
1998's Lost Universe at first glance kinda doesn't look all that special, but when you really dive deep into the bones of it, you'll find one of the biggest examples of the anime industry's growing pains that was present all throughout that year. That's right, people, this isn't just another Kanzaka adaptation we're talking about, but we've also got another edition of 1998, the worst year in anime. One of the reasons why that is a befitting descriptor is because 1998 is when the big franchises that defined the decade came to a screeching halt, falling victim to terrible TV adaptations that were low quality in both animation and storytelling. And some people want to put Lost Universe in there as well. The production foibles this anime went through are so legendary that some have credited it for not just ending a potential franchise, as well as causing the Slayers to go dormant for a few years, but also taking any plans for future Kanzaka adaptations with it. I guess people are still waiting for that Higari Quest anime any day now. Was Lost Universe such a ramshackle production that it helped cause a white-hot franchise like Slayers, which up to that point was still putting out annual movies, to fall off its hot streak? Is it that bad?
What's happening?
It's time to grab our Psycho Blade and get to the bottom of this. Let's find out what losses Lost Universe incurred, if it ever had any.
Let's boogie!
The Lost Universe novels began their publication on December 20th, 1992, 3 years after the first Slayers novel was published. We don't have much in the way of background information of how Lost Universe came into being, that I could find anyway, but I would think it's pretty easy to assume after writing a bunch of D&D style fantasy novellas non-stop for 3 years, Kanzaka definitely needed to shake things up. So what better way to get away from fantasy than by going to its polar opposite in the realm of sci-fi? It's Slayers in space. That really is the elevator pitch for Lost Universe. A dumb swordsman with lofty ideals and a more practical and greedier female companion with a vast arsenal of tricks up her sleeve go across the land and complete odd jobs and maybe save the entire known universe while they're at it. The similarities are so noticeable that to the average reader, the biggest discussion people have had with this franchise is whether or not there is any connection with the Slayers universe. There's probably one big one we will get into later in this video, but according to Kanzaka, there is little relation between the two series. Even if the worlds share a few names or concepts, the Slayers universe and the Lost universe exists on their own separate planes of existence. Or to be more literal, both series take place in a multiverse, with the Slayers world being called Red World and the Lost Universe world being called Black World. But litigating all of that stuff that has a clear answer from the author is not what this video is all about. Like with Slayers, it took 6 years to actually receive the coveted anime adaptation, and with its sister series proving that the light novel adaptation can work in the format of a 26 episode TV anime, 3 times in a row as a matter of fact, I guess it was decided, hey, let's give another Kanzaka work a shot. Plus, the Lost Universe anime would have largely the same studio and production crew as the previous 3 Slayer seasons. Director Takashi Watanabe was kept on board, composer Osamu Tezuka was kept on board, character designer Naomi Miyata was kept on board. They even got Slayers Tries 7:30 PM's time slot. No doubt in the minds of many that, despite the two series' differences, Lost Universe was largely treated as a 4th season of Slayers. This all provides some fuel for a little conspiracy theory I've had for why they chose Lost Universe instead of another season of Slayers. If you remember what I said back in the Try video, the cast of Slayers Next, which included Lena, Gowry, Amelia, Zelgadis, and Zelos, were the most popular cast the series had since all the characters had great chemistry with one another. That is why, instead of making Slayers try an adaptation of the next Slayers novel that just went back to Lena and Gowry being the principal cast, they just did their own original story arc with the Slayers Next cast returning. And after that, they decided to adapt a different Kanzaka story just so they wouldn't have to spend time cooking up another original plot. Adaptations are easier after all. From an animation standpoint, you can tell that this was an anime made by the same studio that made the Slayer series, E&G Films, in that it is very workman. It doesn't really take any huge risk to execute Sakuga and often relies a lot on the old tricks of the trade to save budget, like stock footage, zooms, and the flickering of cells. But at the same time, it's held aloft by strong storyboarding and character designs that stand out and draw your attention to the screen. Really, just more of what you expect from the Slayers crew. with one notable exception. One of the reasons we call 1998 the worst year in anime is because that it is considered to be the year where the transition to cell animation to full-on digital animation began. I don't think I need to tell you that that was an awkward puberty for everybody, and unfortunately for Lost Universe, it had a real bad case of animation acne.
Ew!
90% of this anime was done in the traditional cell animated style, but there are some shots that were clearly done digitally. 1 minute you're enjoying your retro sci-fi anime, and then for a few seconds, all the characters' coloring looks significantly more garish, and they have been transported to a less detailed dimension. And then we have the scenes with starships and space battles, which are done entirely in CGI provided by small-time 3D animation collective Project Team Doga. And when I mean CGI, I mean 1998 TV budget CGI. And doesn't it look nice, folks? I mean, it hasn't aged today, hasn't it? The average space battle from 20 years ago doesn't look nearly as good as this. Okay, sarcasm aside, there was a bit of an internal push to start using CGI for giant robot and space opera anime during this period, not only out of time and cost considerations, but also because it would allow for greater freedom of movement. I can see how advantageous that would be for space battles in particular. But that's the thing with the early digital era. The majority of it does not look good in the cold light of 2025. In fact, it probably did not look good in 1998 either. Plus, these scenes rob Soybreaker of properly displaying the might of its psychic weaponry. The tangibility of its psychic beams is ultimately muted by the circa 1995 PlayStation cutscenes graphics, made even worse when they do use cell animation for space battles, and even with their stiffness, they still look easier on the eyes. As a result, Lost Universe feels like a guinea pig series, a way to experiment and develop new techniques that the anime industry will be utilizing going forward. But with a combination of traditional animation, it mostly serves to remind you of all the amazing animation techniques that are going to be lost in a few short years. The cell animation of Lost Universe does a great job of capturing a gritty, lived-in setting and utilizing the classic techniques of backlighting cells, which makes Hideto Nakahara's art direction shine all the more. It leaves a bitter taste knowing that this
Hold still, let me get it.
is soon going to be replacing this.
Don't you fret, Tom. I will find justice.
But that's not what people talk about when they bring up Lost Universe's animation. There is one thing about this anime that has lived on through decades in infamy. Folks, it is time we talked about coconut crabs. Lost Universe had quite a turbulent production at the start of it, and you can see it right when you load that first DVD in and see the opening. Right as it begins, we get an under construction sign followed by just slow pans of the characters in blank space while the Megumi Hayashibara opening plays. The real opening does not get played in full until episode 7. That unfinished opening is merely a small glimpse of the production foibles Lost Universe went through. Another reason why 1998 is considered a bad year is because it is the start of what anime professionals have dubbed a bubble period for the industry. Not that bubble period, I'm talking about the bad bubble period. The bubble period that took place during the Asian financial crisis. Anime productions were overworked and understaffed, and the quality of the product suffered as a result. Like Slayers, Lost Universe was not given the biggest budget. Apparently, it had about 1/8 of Cowboy Bebop's budget for the same number of episodes. But they proved that they could get a well-regarded series out the door on time and on budget thrice fold. So I guess the production heads figured that it would be more or less of the same. What happens next has been subject to a lot of hearsay and rumors. The blame has been laid against management problems, understaffing, and even a possible studio fire that may or may not have actually happened. But the first batch of episodes were released in an unfinished state. Not just the opening, but the episodes themselves. They were fixed for home video release, but even then, you can tell that there were some issues that needed to be corrected by how awkward some of these shots look compared to the rest of the series. It all culminated in episode 4, Feasting on Coconut Crab. According to historian Mike Toole, most of the animation for Lost Universe got outsourced to South Korean studio Sanho Studio. But apparently, the character model sheets, or sete, got lost in transit. It should be noted that those model sheets not only provide reference for how the characters are supposed to be drawn, but also how they're supposed to be posed, the coloring of their costume, lighting and shading techniques, how they should be drawn to scale, basically everything an animator needs to know about a character while they are drawing them for consistency. With only a small stack of finished keyframes and no time to wait for replacement of the sete, the studio just had to give it the good old college try and make it all from scratch. And what made it to broadcast? Oh my goodness. It's not pretty. What you are seeing is the absolute most rotten fruits born by the year 1998 in anime. Missing cells, complete non-existence of lighting and shading, characters barely animating as their faces melt, constant zooming on cells that aren't even animated. This actually aired on broadcast TV. And the best part is that this is not a beach episode like you would expect at first glance. It is actually a plot-critical episode that introduces the villainous assassin Kali, and by extension the Nightmare Syndicate, aka our main troop of baddies that our heroes will be fighting for most of the anime. Everybody screwed up big time. And while the first season of Slayers also had issues with their animation from time to time, it never got to this level. TV Tokyo ended up having to issue an apology, and lo was a new otaku slang born, Yashigani anime, or coconut crab anime, a term used to describe a collapse in animation quality control so dire it is practically unsalvageable. And believe you me, this won't be the last time we talk about Yashigani on this show. One of these days I'll have to get around to cabbages. And while it never got that bad again, even on the DVD, you can see that the team had to use their newfound digital tools to fix problems. Not just in the aforementioned digipaint shots, but also with some ugly digital zooms, and I think one shot having to use a second generation videotape due to the flickering found at the top. The fact that this anime actually is still watchable after all of this is nothing short of a miracle. But it's fine, we can forgive all that. Animation isn't all that makes up a Kanzaka work. We also have his strong character writing. While he might seem a little too shonen hero at first glance, Kane Blue River is still a compelling protagonist. For one thing, he's not a reskin of Gowry. He's actually quite resourceful, able to think on his feet, and is ready to defer to Canal if he ever feels out of his depth. He's someone who, even if he does bitch about the jobs Canal and his Universal Guardians contact Rail assigns him,
She should be showing up there in about an hour. Enjoy your vacation. I hate you!
he still takes those jobs seriously at the end of the day. Also helps that he really is a massive goof who really does want to help other people, and is genuinely a friendly and sociable person to be around.
Oh man, I can't! Billy's gonna freak!
Help us! Help us! Help us! Help us!
Well, I don't see why not.
Sweet!
This is what makes Canal a good foil for him. Canal, by her nature as a computer, is far more goal-oriented. While Kane's more focused on the job at hand, Canal just really wants that pot of gold at the rainbow, and this creates a wellspring of conflict between the two.
I wish you'd stop being such a tightwad and rent a tug to pull this thing.
I'm afraid there's just no room in the budget for that. Be a man!
But even with her managerial mindset, often to the point of being the most cynical member of the team, Canal still has a happy-go-lucky attitude and always has a bright smile on her face.
You people's answer to every problem is just to blow it away.
Hey, why isn't she going down? She must be a hologram.
And then we have Millie, the true source of the series' comedy. She really does believe that she is the best at everything. It's an ironclad ideal she follows throughout her life.
Cracking this case will make me the best detective in the whole universe! The best in the universe! I love the way that sounds!
And the thing is that might be true. She is an amazing Jill of all trades, always willing to take jobs that allow her to show off her many skills. Also, her status as the ship's cook is one of the series' most inspired jokes. Her cooking always appears to wreck Swordbreaker's kitchen, much to Canal's dismay, but somehow she manages to take the most disparate ingredients and turn them into a delicious feast.
This is great! You've really outdone yourself, Millie!
I didn't want to use beef jerky and peanut butter for pizza, but since there aren't any supplies around here, I had to to be creative.
But even though she can back up her ego, she still has the stink of utter pathetic fail girl all around her thanks to her spoiled, rotten attitude, and Candy Canal not being all that impressed with her feats.
I can't believe you! You won't even let me buy a popsicle, and you spend all this money on yourself?
Hey!
These characterizations are all made possible by their voice actors. Kane's heroic nature comes off beautifully through Soichiro Hoshi's performance, his first protagonist role.
鍛錬は怠るな。いざという時のためのばあちゃんの言葉。今日ばかりは骨身に染みるぜ。
As does Millie's entitled nature through Tomoko Ishimura's performance.
明日の宇宙一目指して早く寝なきゃ。ゲイは表で寝てね。
金出したのは俺だぞ。
私は女、あなたは男。ほら勝った。バイバイ。
And since this is a Kanzaka-verse title, we've got the MVP of 90s voice acting herself, Megumi Hayashibara as Kanao.
もしもし、どうもありがとう。同じコンピューター同士仲良くしましょうね。愛してる。じゃあね。
As for the dub, I have mixed feelings on it. While it might have been produced by a late 90s ADV Films, the voice cast is comprised of their B-list. No Tiffany Grants or Spike Spencers here. And that's usually not a good sign, but I do still like some performances. The most standout is Larissa Wolcott as Millie, giving the character the voice of an angry little schnauzer.
That thing is not a spaceship. That is a pile of garbage, Nina!
Juggling the role of a snooty braggart, a petulant crybaby, and a ball of white-hot incandescent rage all at once. She was Jessica Calvello's replacement for Excel after all, that ain't nothing.
So I guess the Universal Guardians think they owe it all to that lucky troubleshooter Kane Blue River. But as we know, Kane Blue River owes it all to me. So why do I have to be the one locked away in this dirty old jail cell?
The others are less impressive. Steve Metz as Kane does have the voice that's perfect for the stock shonen hero types.
If you don't shoot, then you can't score. Got it? Now let's play some b-ball.
But he cannot for the life of him sell the intense hot-blooded screams Kane has to do in the second half of the anime.
Here it comes!
Jessica Schwartz's Kanao does get the job in selling both the character's bossy side and happy-go-lucky side, but so much of her performance is delivered in this stilted cadence that makes her sound a few circuits short of a motherboard.
It's not safe to get too relaxed just yet!
Maybe it's to show that she still has a bit of her old logical computer self inside of her, even after all her years with Kane making her act more human, but I don't buy that for 1 second when nearly everyone in this cast has similar flat delivery.
Oh yeah, right, you're gonna stop all of us? You don't stand a chance!
This was the directorial and localization debut of ADR engineer Charles Campbell, and it really shows. And while he has gone on to do better stuff like the dub for One Piece, this dub really showcases the wetness behind his ears.
It was nice working for you!
There's also ADV's bad habit of punching up scripts rearing its ugly head, and while it doesn't get to Stephen Foster levels, there are still oddities that can take you out of it. Like the need to make Millie's dishes weirder in a way that can veer into monkey cheese territory.
I hope you saved room for my extra special dessert! Bologna ice cream!
Hey, you didn't have to do that.
Or the grave sin of keeping an unfunny bit of improv in a scene where it does not call for it.
I've betrayed Universal Guardian, and I've betrayed Kane. I wonder what he must think of me. Man, I am hungry.
But once again, that's fine, we can forgive all that. No one is forcing you to watch the dub after all. What really matters is the strong narrative that carries us throughout Lost Universe. Despite the problems the industry was going through at the time, 1998 might have been the perfect time to launch an anime like Lost Universe. If there's one positive otaku remember about that year, is that it was the year of the space western anime. Sunrise produced 2 such titles that year that have since rode their way into immortality, Cowboy Bebop and Outlaw Star. And out of all the non-Slayers anime you could compare Lost Universe to, those 2 came the closest. I make this case because, unlike Slayers, where the structure is usually centered around a stated end goal with a few episodic side quests here and there, Lost Universe follows a similar formula to the aforementioned Sunrise series. Episodic journeys with little dashes of a serialized plot that progresses a little each time. For example, first 2 episodes centered around a job of the week, here being taking down a mafia syndicate's illegal auction and stopping a runaway spacecraft, but woven within those episodic adventures is the anime giving us a proper introduction to this world and its characters. Through newcomer Millie, who plays the role of the ignorant everywoman, we get to see what Kane and Kanal's jobs as trouble contractors entails, what lost ships are, Swordbreaker's psionic weaponry and how it is utilized, the relationship Kane and Kanal have with the Galaxy Police Force, the Universal Guardians, and their main contact Rail Claymore, and the comedic back and forth Rail has with his klutzy secretary, Nina Mercury. It's a quick, effective way to get us immersed into the universe of Lost Universe.
No assignment is too tough. That's the troubleshooter's creed. You see? It's just Kane Blue River's way!
And from that point forward, we get to witness the crazy weekly journeys of Kane, Kanal, and Millie as they do odd jobs all throughout the galaxy. We get to see Millie escort a little girl who's the star witness of a high-profile trial against an organized crime gang leader all throughout a futuristic cyberpunk city.
I've had just about enough of this! Hey! Take the wheel for a minute!
We get to see the gang have to square off against chicken-worshipping terrorists on a public shuttlecraft.
We because the first class needed punishment by making them because fast food.
No, that's too good for them.
And, like Slayers, we get the obligatory cross-dressing episode when Kane has to infiltrate a prestigious nurses' academy in order to stop a hazing war that's gotten out of hand.
I never would have agreed to it if I'd known I was going to wind up parading around here acting like a girl and wearing a nurse's skirt.
Sweetie pie, you look so cute!
You asked for it! When I get back, I'm scrambling your program!
All the while, we get little drops of a developing plot being built up. We start seeing reoccurring villains like the beautiful assassin Kali and space pirate tactician Roy Glenn make their debuts. And we also get hints at Kane and Kanal's backstories throughout this slate of episodes as well, though sometimes they're implemented in a way that can feel tonally off. When choosing an episode to insert occasional flashbacks to Kane's relationship with his grandmother and implying that there's a real tearjerker of a reason he inherited Swordbreaker, it probably should not have been the episode where a reality warping crystal distorts the ship's space and Kane and Millie spend the whole episode desperately looking for the only toilet on board. This format continues right up to the series' halfway point, episode 13, Reminisce Whirlpools. The Swordbreaker crew arrives at an absolutely gorgeous verdant planet called E17. Kane says the reason why they are here is because this is the time of year where he visits his grandmother Alicia. We soon find out that his grandmother is dead and that he's spending the day paying respects and fixing up her old house. It's a very downbeat but beautiful episode. One, the animators go all out in making the emotionality come through in the visuals. It's the exact opposite of Coconut Crab time right here. We are in full-on Visions of Escaflowne territory.
Take care of the boy for me, will you?
Oh, Kane. Sorry. There's something I'm never going to be able to tell you. Never.
But the time for reflection is rudely interrupted. In the middle of the night, a mysterious blonde stranger appears out of nowhere. Kane immediately tries to attack him because he recognizes him as the one who killed his grandmother and draws his blade. The mysterious man immediately dogwalks Kane in such an effortless and humiliating way that the normally jovial Kane is left traumatized by this for a few episodes. And then, the blind man pays his own tribute to Grandma Alicia, one that's seemingly respectful yet dripping with mocking malice.
May your soul rest in eternal despair. May your soul continue in agony. May darkness forever blacken the depths of your soul.
Folks, we got ourselves a main antagonist. Episode 13 is the turning point for Lost Universe. The Swordbreaker crew are now no longer going to be going on any wacky adventures and earning low pay. They now have a target they must pursue, the Nightmare Syndicate, a clandestine criminal organization formed by the mysterious Albert von Stargazer and his associates Kali, Roy Glenn, and the mysterious blonde swordsman. And for whatever reason, They're after Kane and Swordbreaker. But while we have a main plot thread going, they are still keeping up to a semi-episodic format, although now they've gone from goofy to far more serious adventures, as they should, because these stories do help add more depth to our main cast. We get an episode where Kane helps a friend / trouble contractor mentor complete a job he once failed, which helps both of them overcome their own trauma.
That's right! It's your job, so do it!
That's right. That's the troubleshooter's creed. Always finish your mission.
And we get an episode where Millie goes back to her hometown after a fight with her crewmates, only to realize that she doesn't really have a home to go back to.
Hi, Too bad. You've reached a number that has been disconnected or was not paid on time.
And while this is going on, we get to learn more about the lost ships, how they are these cursed eldritch beings that feed off the life force of their pilots, and how even a good lost ship like Swordbreaker can still steal the life out of Kane if he's not careful. But if you ask me, I only like the parts of the second half that didn't tie into the main story. Those are the strongest bits of writing. But once the episodic adventures fall by the wayside and the main plot takes over the narrative more and more, that's when the anime's narrative begins descending more into coconut crabdom. First, a lot of what goes down in this half doesn't feel as strongly written as the self-contained episodic plots. I don't know how exactly everything goes down in the original light novels, but from some hearsay that I've picked up, the complicated plot stuff that happens is given much more room to breathe. The second half of Lost Universe is this constant barrage of battles, shifting alliances, and our heroes just barely getting away with their lives at every turn. It's a lot to take in, but so much of these events are implemented into the story in a very muddled way. This entire mess kicks off at episode 17 when, near the end, Rail Claymore hijacks a lost ship he's supposed to be protecting from the Nightmare Syndicate. When Kane and the rest of the crew confronts him, he launches a superpowered attack that destroys an entire Universal Guardians fleet, killing thousands. The Swordbreaker only surviving because they put their shields up in time. And the episode ends with Rail getting away in the lost ship and the blame on the destroyed fleet being placed on the Swordbreaker crew. It's a masterful twist that ups the stakes with both a betrayal and an extra task given to Kane and company. Now they have to take down Nightmare Syndicate as a means to clear their name. So you'll be glad to know that they completely ruined this twist by making Rail not actually a traitor. This was only part of a plan so he could destroy the lost ships Nightmare Syndicate had in their possession, as well as the one he commandeered when he was done with it.
You lost ships are pure evil. You destroy galaxy after galaxy. And then, you destroy every civilization in your path.
Okay, but you couldn't have let Kane and Kanao in on this plan since you both have the same goals. Why? You didn't have to put them on Andromeda's Most Wanted and made their job harder. Also, what about all those people you killed? Nope, not important. He was a good guy all along. Second, the villains just plain suck. They are stock, shallow archetypes that only exist as faceless obstacles to the heroes. What have we got? Evil overlord, sinister old man, sexy assassin lady, pretty boy rival character. Breaking new grounds.
It's finally time. Darkness awakens. Nothing can stop destiny.
Compare this to Slayers, where the villains are always one of a kind, particularly Zelos, a genocidal bastard of a demon who gets by with a trickster persona and constantly hangs out with our heroes simply because they are his biggest allies of convenience. You won't find characters like him here. Third, the tone is all over the place. Whereas Slayers could really strike an excellent balance between comedy and drama and knew when and where to pull back on both, that skill seems conspicuously absent for the second half of Lost Universe. The overall mood for the second half of Lost Universe is dour and bleak. The crew constantly struggling with the Nightmare Syndicate. Every step forward taken against them only seems to result in 5 steps back, being besieged at all sides so that there's hardly any safe harbor for them. It gets to the point where Kane and Kanao made the unanimous decision to abandon Millie because the mission to take down the Nightmare Syndicate might be one they don't come back from. So when you get moments like these in this part of the anime,
I'm all rested up and ready for battle and pie and...
Just rest! Nursey Poo Kanao can tell when you've been pushing yourself too hard!
it comes off as very disingenuous and clashes with everything else. For example, there's a part where Kane is dueling Kali and her lost ship, and when the ship absorbs Kali into its system, it basically becomes unstoppable. So, Kane decides to activate the same protocol his grandmother did to save his life many years ago. It will destroy all enemies in the area, but at the cost of the user's life force. And Kanao, unable to stop the program, does not have any of it, and boy howdy is Megumi Hayashibara acting like her life depended on it.
神様助けて、ケイを止めて、お願い神様。
最高度ファイナルが発動されました。まもなく物理衝撃破壊ステージに入ります。
止めて、ね、
物理衝撃破壊ステージでカウント100。
At the last minute, Millie and Nina arrive and they're able to stop the protocol by, get this, Nina tripping and placing her hand on the system, which causes a numbers error, canceling the attack. She literally prevented Kane from sacrificing his own life needlessly through comical clumsiness.
Have a nice day.
But it doesn't work as a punchline, partially because it comes right after such intense drama, but also Nina's clumsiness hasn't really gotten that much play throughout the anime. It's how she's introduced, but it barely gets properly implemented as either a character trait or a running gag. And finally, the pacing of everything in the second half is all over the place. Somehow, it feels like everything is unfolding way too slowly while also happening so fast that it feels like we skipped a few scenes, and it really comes to a head in the finale. So we learned that the Nightmare Syndicate's true goal is to gain control of the ultimate lost ship, Darkstar, and the only one that can defeat Darkstar is another lost ship called Volfield, aka Canal and Swordbreaker. And if that sounds familiar, that is because this is setting up the climax the Slayers try all over again, minus all the dragons and the genocide. This is probably the most explicit connection we have to the Slayers world in Lost Universe, but like Kanzaka said, it doesn't really go beyond names. The Blonde Swordsman's lost ship shares the same name as Gowry's Sword of Light, but nothing beyond that. It's just neat trivia. Anyways, now we get to the massive 6-lane pileup of plot twists this anime throws at us. Plot twist that I will be spoiling, so get ready. We learned that the Blonde Swordsman is a young clone of Von Stargazer. We learned that the clone has been possessed by the spirit of Darkstar and betrays Von Stargazer for their own agenda.
If I was so much of a help, why not let me go?
No one is let go in this battle. We're all casualties.
We learned that Millie is actually Von Stargazer's daughter, Millennium Stargazer, and that, through genetics, Darkstar can turn her into a puppet.
I bet you never thought this would happen. Shot by one of your own? A traitor?
And these are the plot twists that they actually kept in. From the novel, there's actually a bigger deal made about how Albert von Stargazer is also the brother of Grandma Alicia, and how both of them discovered Darkstar and Volfield at the same time. And the anime literally does not have time to even skim past that because there's already too much going on. Too much going on that I can't even really get invested in all of it. Like, I know I should be feeling excited for the things happening on screen. I should be hyped seeing Kane have his lightsaber duel with Darkstar, or seeing Canal literally tear herself apart trying to take down the opposing enemy's lost ships. But I don't feel hyped. I just feel nonplussed because somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling invested. But get this, sports fans, you want to know what the crazy part of all of this is? Lost Universe was actually a hit. Yes, despite all of the animation errors, all of the changes in narrative, and ending on a bittersweet note with a blatant sequel hook that it really did not earn, Lost Universe was massively popular with the Japanese fanbase, consistently performing well in the Animage polls and netting 3rd place in the 21st Anime Grand Prix, just behind Cowboy Bebop and the Nadesco movie. Kane and Kanao were both in the top 5 for best male and female characters that year. The final episode won the best episode of 1998. People adored this anime. If anything, this proves how much brand recognition Kanzaka had in his favor in the 90s, that the Sci-Fi spin-off of his popular fantasy series could perform just as well as the previous entries, and yet, all it really has to show for its legacy now is coconut crabs. Which says it all, really. Once the hype wore off, there's not really much to go back to compared to Slayers, and while the episodic plots are far more strongly written than the main plots, none of them stick out compared to either Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star. You're not going to find a Toys in the Attic nor a Hot Springs Planet 10 Ray here. Maybe its legacy could have been more secure if there was a second season to secure it, and I've heard rumors that there was one in the works. But the financial turmoil the anime industry was going through caused producers to hold off on that in favor of the much more secure Slayers franchise. And that only had a few more years left before entering hibernation, so Lost Universe ended up getting lost in more ways than one. It brings me no pleasure to reveal how disappointing Lost Universe turned out to be, even without the animation shortcomings. It really does feel like an anime that should be way better than it actually is. The ingredients are all there. They're the same ingredients that made me fall in love with the Slayers franchise, but they just aren't used well here. They're too haphazardly assembled and dissonant to come together into one beautiful whole. It's still watchable, and I did get some enjoyment out of a few episodes, but after finishing it, I understand why Lost Universe's space western contemporaries and its fantasy counterparts still continue to get their flowers to this day, while this is only remembered for more infamous reasons. Alas, that's the way the coconut falls, Lost Universe. Hope you enjoyed your time in the sun, because next year, we're going to be doing what everyone else did after you aired and going back to Slayers. See you, Space Coconut Crab. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.